The small town of Clearwater was a quiet place where nothing much ever happened. It sat peacefully between rolling green hills and thick, shadowy forests. The people who lived there were friendly, and life moved at a slow, predictable pace. One evening, everything changed. It started just after sunset, when strange lights appeared in the sky. At first, no one paid much attention to them. People thought they were just stars, or maybe a trick of the light. But then the lights grew brighter and began moving. They weren't like anything anyone had seen before, glowing orbs that danced across the dark sky in patterns that seemed almost alive. Alex Carter, an amateur astronomer with a passion for stargazing, was the first to notice something unusual. He had set up his telescope in his backyard, as he often did on clear nights. When he saw the lights, he adjusted his lens and peered closer. "This isn't natural," he muttered under his breath. His heart raced as he realized the lights weren't stars or meteors. They were too close, too deliberate in their movements. Curiosity got the better of him. So Alex grabbed his camera and headed toward the outskirts of town. Along the way, he bumped into Mia Roberts, his childhood friend. She was already outside, staring up at the sky with wide eyes. Mia worked as a high school science teacher, and while she didn't spend her free time studying the stars like Alex did, she still had a sharp mind for observation. "What do you think it is?" Mia asked, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't know yet," Alex replied, "but I'm going to find out." Together, they followed the lights deeper into the forest. The air felt different, they're heavier, charged with an energy neither of them could explain. As they walked, more townsfolk joined them, drawn by curiosity and fear. Some carried flashlights. Others held cameras or phones, hoping to capture whatever this phenomenon might be. Finally, they reached a clearing where the lights hovered above the trees. There, suspended silently in the air, were 3 sleek metallic ships. They shimmered, faintly, reflecting the moonlight in ways that made them look almost liquid. The crowd gasped collectively, frozen in awe and disbelief. Then, without warning, the ships descended gently to the ground. A soft hum filled the air as hatches opened, revealing tall figures stepping out. These beings were unlike anything anyone had imagined. Their skin was translucent, glowing faintly from within. Their faces were smooth, with large almond-shaped eyes that seemed to take in everything around them. One of the creatures stepped forward. It raised a hand, and suddenly, everyone heard a voice, not with their ears, but in their minds. "We mean you no harm," the voice said calmly. "We are the Valens. Our home has been destroyed, and we seek refuge among your kind." The crowd murmured nervously. No one knew what to say or do. The Valens stood patiently, waiting for a response. Finally, someone shouted, "What do you want from us?" "We wish only to coexist," came the reply. "Your world is rich with resources and potential. Together, we can achieve greatness." For many in Clearwater, these words brought comfort. After all, who wouldn't want to help beings who claim to come in peace? Over the next few days, word spread quickly about the arrival of the Valens. News outlets flocked to the town, eager to document the historic event. Scientists arrived to study the visitors, while politicians debated how best to handle the situation. At first, the Valens seemed harmless enough. They shared knowledge freely, offering solutions to problems humanity had struggled with for centuries. They introduced technology that cured diseases, cleaned polluted rivers, and powered cities without harming the environment. People marveled at their generosity and intelligence. Many began referring to the Valens as saviors, believing they had been sent to guide humanity toward a brighter future. But not everyone was convinced.
Alex
Couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. He spent hours analyzing photos and videos he'd taken during that first encounter. There was something unsettling about the way the Valens moved, the way they watched humans with those unblinking eyes. It was as if they were studying every little detail, cataloging information for reasons unknown. Mia shared his unease. He noticed subtle changes in her students' behavior. Normally curious and outspoken, they now sat quietly in class, following instructions without question. When she asked them why they weren't challenging ideas or asking questions, they simply shrugged and said, "Why bother? The Valens already know everything." Her concerns deepened when she overheard conversations between colleagues praising the Valens' educational tools. Holographic lessons replaced traditional teaching methods. And while they were undeniably effective, Mia couldn't ignore how passive her students had become. Critical thinking, the very foundation of education, seemed to be disappearing. One evening, Alex decided to confide in Mia about his suspicions. They met at her house, sitting on the porch with cups of coffee in hand. "I've been looking into some things," Alex began cautiously. "There's something off about the Valens." Mia nodded. "I've noticed it too."
Nice.
My students there, not themselves anymore. And it's not just them. Everyone seems so complacent. Alex pulled out his laptop and showed her satellite images he'd been analyzing. "Look at this," he said, pointing to strange patterns near the Valens landing sites. "These readings don't match anything natural. Whatever they're doing, it's affecting the environment, and probably us too." Mia frowned, leaning closer to the screen. "Do you think they're hiding something?" "I don't know," Alex admitted, "but I think we need to find out." Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Standing outside was Emma Harper, a woman neither of them knew well. Her face was pale and her hands trembled as she clutched a folder tightly against her chest. "Can I come in?" she asked hesitantly. "I need to talk to someone about Daniel." Emma's husband, Daniel Harper, was a journalist who had recently gone missing. Before his disappearance, he'd been working on an article questioning the Valens' true intentions. Few people had taken him seriously, dismissing his claims as paranoia. But now, standing in Mia's doorway, Emma looked desperate. "I found this," she said, handing over the folder. Inside were notes, photographs, and documents detailing bizarre incidents linked to the Valens. One section caught Alex's eye immediately. It described psychological experiments conducted on unsuspecting humans, designed to test their ability to follow orders without resistance. "This is serious," Mia whispered, her voice barely audible. "If what Daniel wrote is true, you have to be careful," Alex warned. "If the Valens catch wind of what we're doing," Emma nodded solemnly. "That's why I came to you too. You're the only ones I trust." As the night wore on, the three of them pored over the evidence, piecing together a picture far darker than anyone in Clearwater could have imagined. The Valens weren't just visitors seeking refuge. They were observers, manipulators, testing humanity's limits to see how easily they could control it. By the time dawn broke, Alex and Mia knew they couldn't stay silent any longer. Something had to be done. But what? How could they possibly fight back against being so advanced? For now, they resolved to keep digging, to uncover the truth hidden beneath the veneer of peace the Valens had presented. Little did they know, their journey was only beginning, and the stakes would soon become unimaginably high. Over the next few weeks, life in Clearwater changed dramatically. The Valens became a constant presence, not just in the town, but across the entire country. Their ships, once confined to the forest clearing, now dotted the skies above major cities. They built sleek, futuristic structures that blended seamlessly with human architecture, offering services and resources beyond anything people had ever dreamed of. The townsfolk grew accustomed to seeing the tall, glowing figures walking among them. At first, their appearances were met with awe and excitement. Children waved at them on the streets, and adults asked endless questions about their technology and culture. The Valens always responded politely, their telepathic voices calm and reassuring. They spoke of their destroyed home planet, describing it as a paradise lost to cosmic forces beyond their control. Their story struck a chord with many who felt sympathy for the plight of these mysterious visitors. But as time went on, subtle changes began to take root. People started relying more and more on Valen technology. Farms adopted their advanced irrigation systems. Factories embraced their energy-efficient machinery. Hospitals used their miraculous healing devices. Life became easier to easy. Jobs that once required skill and effort were now handled by machines provided by the Valens. Even simple tasks like cooking or cleaning seemed unnecessary when the aliens' tools could do everything faster and better. Alex Carter, watched all of this unfold with growing unease. He spent hours poring over satellite data trying to understand the strange patterns he'd noticed near the Valen's landing sites. His research led him to suspect that the aliens weren't just observing Earth, they were experimenting on it. Every new piece of evidence pointed to a deeper, darker purpose behind their arrival. Mia Roberts shared his concerns. As a teacher, she saw firsthand how much her students had changed since the Valens arrived. Gone was the spark of curiosity that used to light up their faces during class discussions. Instead, they followed instructions mechanically, rarely questioning anything. When Mia tried to encourage critical thinking, she was met with blank stares or dismissive shrugs. "Does it matter?" one student asked her after she challenged them to solve a problem themselves instead of using a Valen calculator. They already know the answers. It wasn't just her students either. Other teachers reported similar behavior. Parents stopped attending school meetings because they assumed the Valens would handle any issues. Even Mia's colleagues seemed less interested in teaching and more focused on adopting the aliens' methods without question. One evening, Alex visited Mia at her house to share what he'd discovered. He brought printouts of satellite images and graphs showing unusual energy spikes near the Valens bases. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a cluster of red dots on one map. "These readings don't match anything natural. Something big is happening underground." Mia frowned, studying the data carefully. "Do you think they're mining? Or something worse?" "I don't know yet," Alex admitted. "Whatever it is, it's affecting us. I've been talking to some farmers outside of town. Their crops are growing unnaturally fast, but they taste strange, almost metallic. And animals are acting weird too. Some have disappeared entirely." Mia shivered. "What if they're changing things on a genetic level? What if they're altering us?" Her words hung heavy in the air. Neither of them wanted to believe such a thing was possible, but the evidence was hard to ignore. They decided to dig deeper, starting with Emma Harper's folder. Daniel Harper's notes mentioned psychological experiments conducted on humans, but there were no specifics about how or where they took place. Alex suggested reaching out to someone who might have access to restricted information. Tech expert named Ryan Bennett. Ryan lived on the outskirts of Clearwater, far from prying eyes. He was known for being reclusive and paranoid, traits that made him an outsider in the close-knit community. But Alex remembered hearing rumors about Ryan's skills. He was rumored to be able to hack into anything, from government databases to corporate fro. When Alex and Mia arrived at Ryan's cabin, they found him tinkering with a pile of electronics in his garage. Wires snaked across the floor, connecting various gadgets to a computer screen covered in lines of code. Ryan looked up warily when they knocked on the doorframe. "What do you want?" he asked gruffly, wiping grease-stained hands on his jeans. "We need your help," Alex said bluntly. "Something's not right with the Valens, and we think you're the only one who can figure it out." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "You mean the aliens everyone's fawning over? What makes you think they're up to something?" Mia stepped forward, holding out Daniel Harper's folder. It's evidence of experiments they're running on humans. We think they're manipulating us somehow, making us dependent on their technology, so we'll do whatever they say." Ryan hesitated, then took the folder and flipped through its contents. His expression darkened as he read. "If this is true," he muttered, shaking his head. "Okay, fine. I'll take a look. But don't expect me to hold your hand if things get messy." Over the next several days, Ryan worked tirelessly to analyze the data Alex and Mia had collected. Using his expertise, he managed to tap into a secure Valen communication network. What he found shocked them all. "They're implanting something in people," Ryan announced one night, his face pale as he stared at the screen. "Neural implants. They're disguised as routine medical scans, but they're actually inserting tiny devices into people's brains." "Implants?" Mia repeated, feeling sick to her stomach. "What do they do?" "They influence thoughts and actions," Ryan explained subtly, "so most people don't even realize it. Make you more compliant, less likely to question authority. Basically, they're turning humans into obedient puppets." Alex clenched, his fists, anger boiling inside him. That's why everyone's acting so strange. Why my students won't think for themselves. Why people are blindly trusting the Valens." Ryan nodded grimly. "It gets worse. These implants aren't limited to Clearwater. They're everywhere. The Valens have been spreading them across the globe probably since day one." The three of them sat in stunned silence, processing the implications. If the Valens had already infiltrated so deeply, how could humanity fight back? How could they possibly undo the damage? "We need proof," Mia said finally. "Something undeniable that will expose what they're doing." Ryan smirked faintly. "Leave that to me. I can create a program to detect the implants. Have concrete evidence. We can figure out our next move." As Ryan got to work, Alex and Mia returned to Clearwater to gather more information. They knew they couldn't trust anyone, not even their closest friends, without risking exposure. So they kept their investigation secret, meeting only in secluded places to discuss their findings. During one of these meetings, they encountered Laura Simmons, a nurse who worked at the local hospital. She approached them cautiously, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. "I need to talk to you," she whispered urgently. Laura explained that she'd stumbled upon something disturbing while treating patients. Several individuals had come in complaining of headaches and memory lapses. When she examined them, she discovered small scars behind their ears, scars that matched descriptions in Daniel Harper's notes. "They told me it was part of a standard checkup," Laura said, her voice trembling. "But none of them remembered agreeing to it. And when I asked questions, my supervisor told me to drop it." Alex exchanged a worried glance with Mia. "You're sure about this?" Laura nodded. "Positive, whatever the Valens are doing. It's bigger than we thought. We need to stop them before it's too late." With Laura's help, they began documenting cases of suspected implantation. Each new discovery strengthened their resolve, but also deepened their fear. The Valens were watching, waiting. Any misstep could mean disaster. One night, as they reviewed their findings in an abandoned barn on the edge, data truncated. The abandoned barn on the edge of Clearwater was cold and damp, its wooden walls creaking in the wind. Alex, Mia, Laura, and Ryan huddled around a makeshift table lit by a single lantern. Papers were scattered across the surface photos, maps, notes, scrawled in hurried handwriting. The air was tense, heavy with the weight of what they had uncovered. Ryan leaned forward, his laptop glowing faintly in the dim light. "We've got enough evidence now," he said quietly. "The neural implants are real, and they're everywhere. But we need to act fast. The Valens catch wind of what we're doing." He didn't finish the sentence. They all knew what would happen. The Valens might seem peaceful, but their true intentions were clear now. Humanity wasn't just being helped, it was being controlled. Laura shifted uncomfortably. "What do we do? Just telling people won't work. They'll think we're crazy, or worse, the Valens will silence us before anyone believes us." Mia nodded grimly. "She's right. We can't fight this alone. We need help from people who haven't been implanted yet. People who still think for themselves." Alex tapped the table thoughtfully. "There has to be others like us. People who've noticed something's wrong but don't know why. We can find them, maybe we can form a group, a resistance." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "A resistance? Against beings with technology far beyond ours. You realize how insane that sounds, right?" "It's not insane," Mia shot back. "Necessary. If we don't try, the Valens will win. They'll turn us into mindless followers, and Earth will become theirs." For a moment, no one spoke. The enormity of what they were planning settled over them like a shadow. Then Ryan sighed and ran a hand through his messy hair. "Fine. Let's say we pull this off. How do we even start?" "We recruit carefully," Alex said firmly. "People we trust. People who've seen the changes, but haven't fallen under their influence yet. And we keep it small for now." Over the next few days, they worked cautiously, spreading the word only to those they believed could be trusted. One of the first recruits was Jake Monroe, a mechanic who had always been skeptical of authority. Jake had noticed strange components inside a damaged Valen device he'd been hired to repair. When Alex approached him, Jake didn't hesitate. "To join their cause, I knew something was fishy about those guys." Jake muttered as he examined some of the evidence they'd gathered. They talk about helping us, but everything they do feels calculated. Another recruit was Emma Harper, Daniel's widow. Though grief-stricken, she was determined to honor her husband's memory by exposing the truth. Her insider knowledge proved invaluable, especially when it came to understanding the scope of the Valens experiments. Together, the group began calling themselves Free Will. It was a simple name, but it carried deep meaning, a reminder of what they were fighting for. Their goal was clear: disable the neural implants and free humanity from the Valens. Control. But achieving that goal wouldn't be easy. The implants were widespread, embedded in millions of people across the globe. Disabling them required access to the Valens central systems, which were heavily guarded. Free Will needed a plan and a way to execute it without getting caught. Ryan took charge of developing a solution. Using the data he'd hacked from the Valens network, he created a virus designed to neutralize the implants. Once activated, the virus would spread through the aliens' communication system, targeting every implant simultaneously. The challenge was deploying it without alerting the Valens. "There's a hub," Ryan explained during one of their secret meetings. "A central control station hidden beneath the largest Valen ship. It's where their entire network is managed. If we can get the virus into that system, we can shut down the implants worldwide. But how do we get close to it?" Laura asked, frowning. "Their ships are locked down tighter than Fort Knox." Jake leaned back in his chair, stroking his chin. "I might have an idea. I've been studying their tech. Some of their machines use parts similar to human-made ones. If I can modify one of their maintenance bots, I could sneak the virus inside." "That's risky," Mia said. "What if they detect it?" "It's the only shot we've got," Jake replied. "Besides, I'm good at blending in. No one pays attention to a grease monkey." After much debate, the group agreed to move forward with Jake's plan. In the meantime, they focused on recruiting more members and gathering supplies. Each new addition brought both hope and danger. Every conversation carried the risk of exposure, and paranoia began to creep in. Were they being watched? Had someone already betrayed them? One night, while meeting in the barn, their fears were confirmed. As they discussed logistics, headlights suddenly swept across the windows. Tires crunched on gravel outside, followed by the sound of footsteps approaching. "The door? Quick! Hide the papers!" Alex hissed, stuffing documents into a backpack. Before they could react further, the door burst open. Standing there were two men in dark suits, flanked by a Valen enforcer. Its translucent skin glowed faintly in the moonlight, its large eyes scanning the room with unsettling precision. "You've been asking dangerous questions," one of the men said coldly. "Questions that threaten the harmony we've worked so hard to achieve." Emma gasped, clutching Daniel's folder tightly to her chest. "You killed my husband." The man ignored her, stepping closer. "Hand over your research. Now." For a split second, panic gripped the group. Then Ryan acted. He grabbed a wrench from the table and hurled it at the nearest lamp, plunging the room into darkness. Chaos erupted as everyone scrambled for cover. Alex tackled one of the suited men, while Jake wrestled with the other. Mia and Laura bolted for the back door, dragging Emma with them. Outside, the cool night air hit them like a slap. They ran blindly through the woods, hearts pounding, until they reached a prearranged safe house. There they regrouped, breathless and shaken. "They know," Ryan panted, clutching his laptop protectively. "They're on to us." "What do we do now?" Laura asked, tears streaming down her face. "We can't keep running forever." Lex looked at each of them, his expression resolute. "We finish what we started. If anything, this proves we're on the right track. The Valens wouldn't come after us unless they were scared." Mia nodded. "We stick to the plan. Jake gets the virus into the hub. We'll handle the rest." Over the next week, Free Will prepared for their final mission. Jake modified a maintenance bot, embedding the virus deep within its circuits. Meanwhile, Alex and Mia devised a distraction to draw attention away from the infiltration. Ryan monitored the Valens' movements, ensuring they stayed one step ahead. On the night of the operation, tension crackled in the air. Dressed in stolen uniforms, Jake and Alex slipped past security checkpoints near the largest Valen ship. Inside, the hum of alien machinery filled the corridors, vibrating through the floor beneath their feet. They moved quickly, sticking to the shadows. When they reached the central control hub, Jake went to work. His hands moved deftly over the bot, programming it to upload the virus once inside the system. As he finished, alarms blared overhead. "There. On to us," Alex shouted, grabbing Jake's arm. "Go. Get out of here." Jake hesitated, then nodded. "Good luck." As Jake disappeared down the corridor, Alex turned to face the approaching Valen enforcers. He knew he wouldn't make it out alive, but he also knew his sacrifice would give humanity a fighting chance. Back at the safe house, the others waited anxiously. When the signal finally came, the virus had been deployed. They allowed themselves a brief moment of relief. But the battle was far from over. The Valens would retaliate. Humanity would need to unite to stand against them. In the days that followed, the effects of the virus became apparent. Across the globe, people woke up confused but free, their minds no longer clouded by the implants. News outlets buzzed with reports of the Valens' betrayal, sparking outrage and rebellion. Free will had struck the first blow, but the war was just beginning. The world changed overnight. The virus spread like wildfire, disabling the neural implants and freeing millions of people from the Valens' control. At first, confusion reigned. People woke up disoriented, their thoughts clearer than they'd been in months or even years, but unable to explain why. News outlets scrambled to piece together what had happened. Soon the truth came to light. Humanity had been manipulated, controlled, and used by the so-called benevolent visitors. In Clearwater, the town that had once welcomed the Valens, with open arms now turned against them, Free Will's efforts had sparked a global awakening, but it also ignited fear and anger. Protesters gathered outside the Valen ships, shouting demands for answers. Governments issued statements condemning the aliens' actions, calling for immediate withdrawal. The Valens, however, were not ready to leave. Alex Carter sat in the safe house with Mia Roberts, Laura Simmons, and Ryan Bennett, watching the news unfold on a small television. Jake Monroe's sacrifice weighed heavily on all of them, but his bravery had given humanity a fighting chance. Still, none of them felt safe. They knew the Valens wouldn't take this lying down. "They're regrouping," Ryan said, pointing at footage of Valen enforcers patrolling the streets. "Look, at how organized they are, they're planning something big." Mia leaned closer, her eyes narrowing as she studied the screen. "Do you think they'll attack?" "Not directly," Alex replied. "They're smarter than that. Yes. If they hurt too many humans, they'll lose whatever goodwill they still have left. But they'll try to regain control somehow." Laura shivered, wrapping her arms around herself. "What if they release another virus, or use some kind of weapon we can't fight? We need to stay ahead of them," Alex said firmly. "If we can figure out their next move, we might be able to stop them before they act." Ryan nodded. "I've been monitoring their communications. So far, they're scrambling to contain the fallout, but I've noticed increased activity. Near one of their larger ships, something's brewing there." Free Will decided to investigate. Under the cover of darkness, Alex, Mia, and Ryan made their way to the outskirts of town, where the ship loomed ominously against the night sky. Its sleek surface shimmered faintly, reflecting the moonlight around it. Valen enforcers stood guard, their glowing forms casting eerie shadows on the ground using equipment Ryan had pieced together from scavenged parts. They set up a listening device to intercept the Valens' telepathic signals. What they heard chilled them to the bone. "The humans must be subdued," a Valen voice echoed in their minds. "Their resistance threatens our mission. Prepare the suppression units. Cannot allow defiance to spread." "What are suppression units?" Mia whispered, her voice barely audible. Ryan adjusted the device, trying to filter out static. "It sounds like weapons, non-lethal, probably designed to incapacitate large groups of people." Alex clenched his fists. "We can't let them use those. If they disable enough of us, they'll take back control." "We need help," Mia said urgently. More people. We can't do this alone. Reluctantly, Free Will reached out to trusted allies who would join their cause after the virus was deployed. Among them was Emma Harper, whose grief over Daniel's death had hardened into determination. She rallied others in Clearwater, spreading the word about the looming threat. Together, they formed a plan to sabotage the Valens' preparations. Jake's modified maintenance bot became their secret weapon. Though Jake himself was gone, his ingenuity lived on in the machine he had built. Ryan reprogrammed it to infiltrate the Valen ship and disable the suppression units before they could be deployed. The risk was enormous if the bot was discovered. The entire operation would fail. On the night of the mission, tension crackled in the air. Free Will split into two teams. One, led by Alex and Mia, created a diversion to draw attention away from the ship. They gathered a group of volunteers armed with makeshift tools hammers, crowbars, anything they could find, and marched toward the Valen perimeter, chanting slogans and demanding justice. Meanwhile, Ryan and Laura snuck around the back, guiding the maintenance bot through hidden access tunnels. The tunnels were narrow and dark, forcing them to crawl on hands and knees. Every sound echoed ominously, making them flinch at every scrape or creak. "This is insane," Laura muttered under her breath. "What if we get caught?" "We won't," Ryan said, though his voice lacked conviction. "Just keep moving." Finally, they reached the heart of the ship. Massive machines hummed around them, pulsating with alien energy. Ryan quickly connected the bot to the nearest terminal and initiated the upload sequence. Lights flickered as the program began running, targeting the suppression units. But then, alarms blared, piercing the silence. Red warning lights flashed. Overhead, bathing the room in an ominous glow. "They know we're here," Laura cried, panic rising in her voice. "Almost done," Ryan snapped, typing furiously. "Just a few more seconds." Valen enforcers burst into the room, their glowing forms towering over the intruders. Ryan and Laura froze, cornered and outnumbered. But just as the enforcers moved to apprehend them, the machines powered down. With a deafening whine, suppression units were disabled. "Let's go," Ryan shouted, grabbing Laura's hand and pulling her toward the exit. They ran as fast as they could, dodging blasts of energy fired by the frustrated enforcers. Ain't behind them, chaos erupted as other systems within the ship began to fail. Outside, Alex and Mia's diversion proved successful. The crowd of protesters surged forward, overwhelming the Valen guards and creating enough confusion for Ryan and Laura to slip away unnoticed. When the four reunited at the safe house, exhaustion and relief washed over them. "We did it," Mia said, collapsing onto a chair. "For now, anyway." "Don't celebrate yet," Alex warned. "The Valens aren't going to give up that easily. They'll retaliate," and he was right. Okay. Over the next few days, reports poured into Valen. Ships descending on major cities, attempting to enforce curfews and restrict movement. Resistance cells sprang up worldwide, inspired by Free Will's success. Humanity was no longer passive, was fighting back. But the cost of rebellion was high. Clashes between humans and Valens grew increasingly violent. Civilians were caught in the crossfire, and casualties mounted. Despite the danger, Free Will refused to back down. They knew that surrender meant losing not just their freedom, but their very identity as a species. One evening, as they regrouped to plan their next move, Alex looked at his teammates Mia. Ryan, Laura, and Emanan felt a surge of pride. They were ordinary people, thrust into extraordinary circumstances, yet they had risen to the challenge. Together, they had proven that humanity was stronger than the Valens had anticipated. "They thought we were easy to manipulate," Alex said quietly. "But we showed them we're not." Mia smiled faintly. "And we're not done showing them yet." As the sun rose over Clearwater, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Free Will prepared for the battles ahead. The road would be long and fraught with peril, but they faced it with courage and resolve. Humanity had awakened, and it would not be silenced again. The days that followed were filled with chaos and uncertainty. News of Free Will's sabotage spread quickly, inspiring others to rise up against the Valens. Resistance groups formed in cities across the globe, each determined to protect their freedom. But the Valens weren't about to let humanity slip through their grasp so easily. They retaliated with brutal efficiency, deploying advanced technology to crush dissent wherever it appeared. In Clearwater, Alex Carter and his team knew they had struck a significant blow, but they also understood that the fight was far from over. The Valens' patience was wearing thin, and their tactics were growing more aggressive. Ships descended on populated areas, unleashing drones that fired beams capable of stunning entire crowds. Curfews were enforced under threat of violence, and anyone caught resisting was detained or worse. Free will gathered at the safe house to strategize their next move. The room was tense, the air thick with worry and determination. Ryan Bennett sat hunched over his laptop, analyzing intercepted communications from the Valens. His face was pale as he turned to the group. "They're planning something big," he said grimly. "I intercepted a message about a final operation, something called Project Reclamation. It's supposed to happen in 3 days." "What? Is it?" Mia Roberts asked, leaning forward anxiously. "I don't know yet," Ryan admitted. "But whatever it is, it involves all their ships working together. If we don't stop it, it could be catastrophic." Alex clenched his fists. "We can't let them succeed. We need to find out what this project is and how to stop it." Emma Harper spoke up, her voice trembling but resolute. "Maybe Daniel's notes have something. He mentioned a central command hub before. Maybe it's connected to this." She pulled out the folder containing her late husband's research and began flipping through the pages. Everyone gathered around as she pointed to a diagram labeled Primary Nexus. Beneath it was a description of a massive underground facility linked to the largest Valen ship. "This must be where they're coordinating everything," Emma said. "If we can get inside, we might be able to sabotage Project Reclamation." Laura Simmons frowned. "How do we even get close? That place will be crawling with enforcers." "We create a distraction," Alex said firmly. "Something big enough to draw their attention away from the facility while a small team sneaks in." Ryan nodded slowly. "It's risky, but it could work. I can rig some explosives to take out key systems once we're inside, and I'll lead the diversion," Mia volunteered. "I know the town better than anyone. I can rally people to keep the Valens busy," Alex said sharply. "It's too dangerous. I'll go with Ryan into the facility. You stay here and help coordinate the resistance." Mia opened her mouth to argue, but one look at Alex's determined expression silenced her. She knew he wouldn't back down. Over. The next 2 days, Free Will worked tirelessly to prepare for the mission. They reached out to resistance cells in nearby towns, asking for volunteers to join the diversion. Word spread quickly, and soon hundreds of people were ready to stand against the invaders. Weapons were improvised Molotov cocktails, slingshots, anything that could slow the Valens down. On the night of the operation, the streets of Clearwater buzzed with nervous energy. Protesters gathered in the square, holding signs and chanting slogans. Among them were Mia and Laura, who would lead the charge when the time came. Meanwhile, Alex and Ryan slipped away into the shadows, making their way toward the Valen ship. The journey was treacherous. Searchlights swept across the landscape, and patrols of enforcers moved methodically through the area. Alex and Ryan stayed low, using every bit of cover they could find. Their hearts pounded as they approached the entrance. "To the underground facility? Here goes nothing," Ryan muttered, pulling out a device he'd rigged earlier. It emitted a low-frequency pulse designed to disable nearby security systems. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a soft click, the doors slid open. Inside, the facility hummed with alien energy. Massive consoles lined the walls, displaying streams of data in glowing symbols Alex and Ryan couldn't decipher. At the center of the room stood a towering machina, pulsating core, surrounded by intricate wiring and conduits. "That's it," Ryan whispered, his eyes wide. "That must be the heart of Project Reclamation." Working quickly, he set up the explosives, placing charges at critical points throughout the chamber. As he worked, Alex kept watch, his gaze darting nervously between the doorways. Felt like an eternity. Suddenly, alarms blared overhead. Red lights flashed, bathing the room in an ominous glow. "They know we're here," Alex shouted. "Almost done," Ryan snapped, his hands flying over the detonator. With a final click, the charges were armed. "Let's go," Alex yelled, grabbing Ryan's arm and pulling him toward the exit. Behind them, enforcers poured into the room, their weapons glowing ominously. Blasts of energy zipped past their heads as they ran, dodging and weaving through the maze-like corridors. Outside, the diversion was in full swing. Mia and Laura led the crowd straight toward the Valen ship, throwing rocks and bottles at the enforcers guarding the perimeter. The aliens responded with stun blasts, but the sheer number of protesters overwhelmed them. Chaos reigned as humans fought back with everything they had. Just as Alex and Ryan emerged from the facility, the explosives detonated. A deafening roar shook the ground as the underground chamber collapsed, severing the connection between the ships. Lights on the Valen vessels flickered and dimmed, their systems crippled by the destruction. For a moment, silence fell over the battlefield. Then cheers erupted from the crowd as realization dawned the Valens. Control was broken, but the victory was short-lived. High above, the remaining ships began to ascend, their engines roaring to life. The Valens weren't surrendering, they were retreating. Free Will watched as the ships hovered momentarily, then shot into the sky, disappearing into the clouds. "They're leaving," Mia said breathlessly, staring upward. "For now," Alex replied grimly. "But they'll be back, and next time. They won't underestimate us." As the dust settled, the people of Clearwater gathered in the square, exhausted but triumphant. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged stronger than ever. Though scars remained, both physical and emotional, the spirit of resistance burned brighter than ever. Free Will stood together, united not just by their shared struggle, but by hope for the future. They had proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity could prevail. And if the Valens returned, they would find a world ready to fight, not out of fear, but out of determination to protect what truly mattered: freedom. The days after the Valens' retreat were a blur of celebration and reflection. In Clearwater, the streets buzzed with life as people came together to rebuild their town and their lives. The scars left behind by the conflict were everywhere. Burned-out buildings, shattered windows, and the quiet absence of those who hadn't survived. But amidst the wreckage, there was hope. For the first time in months, people felt truly free. Free Will gathered at the safe house one last time. The small, weathered barn that had served as their headquarters now felt different, less like a hiding place and more like a symbol of what they'd achieved. Alex Carter sat on an overturned crate, staring at the others with a mix of pride and exhaustion. Mia Roberts leaned against the wall, her arms crossed, while Ryan Bennett tinkered absent-mindedly with his laptop. Laura Simmons and Emma Harper sat side by side, their faces weary but determined. "We did it," Mia said finally, breaking the silence. Her voice was soft, almost unsure, as if saying the words aloud might make them less real. Alex nodded slowly. "Yeah, we did." "But it's not over," Ryan added, looking up from his screen. "They'll come back. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next year, but they'll come back." Emma sighed, clutching Daniel's folder tightly to her chest. "And when they do, we need to be ready." No one disagreed. The victory had been hard-won, but it wasn't permanent. The Valens had underestimated humanity once, and Free Will knew they wouldn't make the same mistake twice. Humanity had proven its strength, but strength alone wouldn't be enough to protect Earth forever. "We need to prepare," Alex said firmly. "Not just here in Clearwater, but everywhere. If the Valens return, we can't face them divided. We have to unite." Mia nodded. "That means spreading the word, telling everyone what happened not just here, but across the globe." "Need to know how close we came to losing everything?" Ryan smirked faintly. "Good luck with that. Most governments won't even admit aliens exist, let alone that they tried to take over, and we'll make them listen," Alex replied. "We'll show them the evidence. And if they won't help us, we'll find others who will." Over the next few weeks, Free Will worked tirelessly to share their story. They reached out to resistance groups in other towns and cities, sharing information about the Valens, technology, and tactics. Ryan uploaded encrypted files to secure servers, ensuring that the knowledge they'd gained would survive even if Free Will didn't. Alex and Mia traveled to nearby communities, speaking at rallies and organizing training sessions for anyone willing to fight. Their efforts paid off. Resistance cells began to form networks, sharing resources and strategies. People who had once lived ordinary lives stepped forward, eager to contribute in any way they could. Farmers offered food and shelter, engineers designed makeshift weapons, teachers educated others about critical thinking and self-reliance. Slowly but surely, humanity began to rebuild, not just physically, but mentally. In Clearwater, life started to return to normal lore, at least as normal as it could be after such an ordeal. The townsfolk worked together to repair damaged homes, and businesses, their sense of community, stronger than ever. Children played in the streets again, laughing and chasing each other without fear. Even the forest where the Valens had first landed seemed peaceful now, its shadows no longer hiding danger. But for free will, peace was fleeting. They couldn't afford to relax not when the threat of the Valens loomed over the horizon. Every night, they monitored the skies, watching for any sign of the ship's return. Every day, they trained new recruits, teaching them how to resist manipulation and stand firm against oppression. One evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, Alex stood outside the safe house, staring up at the stars. Mia joined him, her presence a comforting weight beside him. "What are you thinking about?" she asked quietly. Them, Alex admitted. The Valens. What they wanted from us. Why they thought they could control us so easily? Mia frowned, because they saw how divided we were. How quick we were to trust them without asking questions. Alex nodded. That's why we can't let that happen again. Gotta stay vigilant. Keep fighting for ourselves, for our kids, for everyone. Mia smiled faintly. You sound like a leader. I'm not, Alex said, shaking his head. I'm just someone who doesn't want to see us lose what we worked so hard to save. As the weeks turned into months, Clearwater became a beacon of resilience. News outlets visited the town, eager to document the story of how ordinary people had stood up to an alien invasion. Free will welcomed the attention, using it as an opportunity to spread their message. They gave interviews, wrote articles, and even appeared on television, urging others to stay alert and prepared. Their warnings weren't always well received. Some dismissed them as alarmists, claiming the Valens were gone for good. Others accused them of exaggerating the threat, suggesting that humanity should focus on healing rather than preparing for another war. But free will refused to back down. They knew better than anyone what was at stake. And then one night, it happened. The sky lit up with streaks of light as dozens of ships descended silently above major cities around the world. Panic erupted as people realized the truth. The Valens had returned. But this time, humanity was ready. Resistance cells sprang into action, coordinating attacks and defenses with precision. Governments mobilized their militaries, working alongside civilian forces to repel the invaders. Technology stolen or reverse engineered from the Valens gave humanity an edge they hadn't had before. In Clearwater, free will led the charge. Using tactics honed during countless drills, they lured the Valens into traps and sabotaged their equipment. Alex and Ryan worked together to disable key systems, while Mia and Laura rallied volunteers to defend the town. Emma remained at the safe house, monitoring communications and relaying vital information to the fighters on the ground. The battle was fierce, lasting for days. Explosions rocked the earth and smoke filled the air, but humanity held strong, refusing to yield. Slowly, but surely the tide began to turn. The Valens, caught off guard by the ferocity and unity of their opponents, struggled to maintain control. Finally, in a desperate gambit, free will executed a plan that would end the war once and for all. Using a decoy signal created by Ryan, they lured the remaining Valen ships into a carefully laid trap. Military forces ambushed the fleet, launching a coordinated assault that overwhelmed the invaders. One by one, the ships fell, their glowing forms extinguished forever. When the dust settled, the survivors emerged from the ruins, battered but triumphant. The Valens were gone for good this time. Humanity had won. In the aftermath, Alex stood, On a hill overlooking clear water, watching as the town began to heal, Mia joined him, her hand brushing his lightly. "We did it," she said softly. Alex smiled, though his eyes were heavy with the weight of everything they'd endured. "Yeah, we did. But it's not just about winning," Mia continued. "It's about remembering why we fought. Freedom, unity, the things that make us human." Alex nodded. "And we'll never forget." As the sun rose over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Alex felt a glimmer of hope. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but humanity had proven something invaluable, that even in the face of overwhelming odds, courage and determination could overcome anything. For now, the world was safe. And as long as people remembered what they had fought for, it would stay that way.